creepy, just creepy to think about. So we'll see. Always.
We are live on YouTube.
Go. All right, guys. Well, thank you everybody for being here this beautiful, cool Monday on July 21st for the Planning and Parks Committee meeting for the city of Wildwood. Can we do roll call, please?
Chair Galani,
Here?
Councilmember Robleski. Here. Councilmember Trottier.
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg. Councilmember McCutcheon. Here. Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember Franz.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being here, and we'll move on next to take a motion for approval of the minutes from the committee's meeting on Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Councilmember Dodwell, second. Councilmember Hutchin. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Awesome. Thank you, guys. And that takes us into public participation. Do we have anybody? It doesn't look like we have anybody here in person. Do we have anybody online?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak during public comments, please use the raise hand feature and we will promote you to a panelist. Does not appear so.
Okay. Seeing none, that'll move us right into the next item on the agenda, which is action items. And we'll start with Parks Matters. We have 6 items ready for consideration. The first one will be the rebidding process for the Essen Log Cabin reassembly, results and recommendations for Ward 8, and Director Rudich.
Thank you, Chair Galani. First of all, before I begin the presentation on the agenda item, I do want to thank you for accommodating the range of meeting schedules over the last couple of months. As you know, it's kind of a quirk in the calendar that puts the city council meeting on the second Monday, which is immediately then followed by our meeting on the third Tuesday. So it's a little onerous for us to try to produce 2 packets. So we appreciate it very much. Thank you again. The item first on the agenda tonight, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, is the rebidding process in association with Essen Log Cabin and its reassembly of Village Green Phase 1. As you know, there was a rebidding process that concluded with bid openings at the end of January 2025. And through the months of February, March, and April, this committee was presented with information relating to those bids. Ultimately, the committee, in meeting with the low bidder at the time, heard testimony relative to some potential cost savings. That testimony from the bidder before a contract had been signed created concerns for our city attorney. City attorney recommended, for purposes of our discussion, that we rebid the process and start anew. With that direction and council of awareness, exactly what we did. We revised the bid to add 3 add alternates, hoping that those add alternates would ultimately reduce the cost of the project. We heard last Tuesday, and there were 3 bidders. One of the bidders was Bombshell Construction, the other Legacy, and the third Charette Creek Excavating. The bids were open, and the results of the bidding process were identified on page 2 of the memorandum. Those bids ranged from a high of $386,000 to a low of $280,000. The low bid was Charette Creek Excavating, which was also in consideration when we were doing the first set of bids from the January opening. The 3 add alternates, generally speaking, other than the Legacy Contracting Group, were either deducts or slight increases. And the deducts were anticipated, hoped for when we did the second round of bidding. The deducts relate to using a manufactured stone versus a native stone to basically screen a new foundation wall that the cabin would be placed upon. The second is using synthetic shingles versus the natural cedar types. And then the third is using the excess pavers we have The natural stone, again, which has to be cut and set by masons, which is part of the expense. All in all, a bid at $280,000 is a significant savings over what we originally received in terms of the responses to the first round. And Charette Creek also participated in the visit to Gailey's yard to review the logs, to basically make determinations of appropriateness, et cetera. So they have participated and followed along. So tonight, the department is recommending that Charette Creek be able to contact favorable recommendation come from the committee to the city council. Are there any questions, department? I'll go ahead and answer.
I thought their bid's 308. Am I read? You said it's 280?
Yes,
To the right.
The total amount to the right.
yeah, but then there's the deducts. So, so the base bid reflects the natural stone and that being cut by masons. And then the natural cedar shake shingles and then using again natural stone for the walkway from the village green. So the base bid is as was originally advertised both in January and now in July. So the deducts were the ad alternates, and the intent was to try to save money. And it appears, at least with Charette Creek excavating, to reduce the cost substantially.
So are we using actual stone? Are we using fake stone and moving it around?
It's a manufactured stone, so it can be manufactured to the shape we need. Therefore, masons don't need to basically be on site and cut it, set it. And so it's a cost savings and just in terms of the manufacturing process, making it easier to install. So Steve Scott, pardon me, ma'am. Steve Scott, who's an architect that was on our Historic Preservation Commission for years, now is the advisor, actually thought that the natural stone, the manufactured stone might be even better. Because again, it's screening just a slight area of the foundation wall that's visible above the cabin and finished grade.
Councilmember Dodwell,
I'll make a motion to approve and send towards council.
do we have a second? Councilmember Rambo?
Sure.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to approve it. And that's with the Charette Creek excavating.
Yes,
Okay.
Charette Creek.
Have we used them before?
Actually, the city council authorized a preparation of legislation for them to do the trash enclosure at the end of Wildwood Avenue. So if this were to move forward, they would have 2 contracts with the city. We did do some verification of references. Charette Creek Excavating has done a number of cabin reassemblies down in the Herman area. And the gentleman seems to have a good knowledge. And so we feel comfortable, as you know, we're at a point where a contractor can basically meet the requirements of the bidding process. We're more than willing to consider it.
Councilmember Lucy?
Comment. I know there's a lot of great passion around the SN Log Cabin. I've heard it through listening to the meetings. I'm struggling with the cost overruns of our street construction, the village green. We have other log cabins in nearby communities that are already there. Difficulty at this point, given that the log cabin is no longer all the parts to the log cabin. Really, is this a priority project at this time? And that's really what I'm struggling with in voting tonight.
Anybody else? Councilmember Dodwell?
Hasn't this set of logs been sitting around for 10 or 15 years?
It's 10+ years now. We've had them in storage. The last year with all the weather has been probably the most challenging because of the storms. Actually, tornado that went through in March blew off the tarp. We bought another tarp, another storm. So I think my point to the committee over the past couple of months is if we're going to do the reassembly, it's probably the time. We have all the components in place with Village Green, site being prepared by the first contractor for the second contractor for the reassembly. So I understand there's a cost component. And I like to think always first in line, trying to figure out what projects can be deferred to future years. But and that's probably why we've been talking about this in Log Cabin for 10 years.
And then one other question, did we not remove something from your desired budget for 2025 so that we could complete this task?
That's correct.
Okay.
Partner Park had $100,000 for design and engineering.
Mhm.
We spent well less than that. So some of that excess will go toward the reassembly, approximately $60,000. So we'll still have $40,000 to begin the design and engineering work in Partner Park. If presented to this committee and supported and then forwarded to council. So we're trying to spread our capital improvement program monies, at least for parks and planning, as far as we can.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yeah, Joe's right, we need to do it or not do it. I think this is a real, an important addition to the Village Green area. It's just it's gonna be the most prominent feature other than the kids park, which may be a couple years to go. But the department did its job driving the costs down despite inflation and so on and so forth. Seems like a pretty reasonable reconstruction cost, and we're getting what I think are better materials. These fake stones, it looks just like the real thing, except you got a real foundation to build on. You don't have to be, shimming things and doing that. And then the roof will be tons more durable than a natural cedar shake roof would be. So I think it's a good value, and we're all concerned about spending money in this particular environment, but less than $300K, we get it done. It's been a promise to lots of the community for a long time, and I think this is the time to make it happen. And Charette Creek, they've been vetted to death on log cabins by the department and so forth. So I really do think it makes sense and it's worth doing. I just want to make that statement as well.
Councilmember McCutcheon, did you?
Yeah, so will this bring our overall cost above what we're allowed to spend for one project?
Again, Village Green, if you look at it as the total pie, so to speak, remember the charter language specifies that city tax dollars or city funds.
And we have
So-
grants.
Yeah, so Melanie has been very good at getting $575,000 grants for both phases of Village Green. So that's an immediate deduct off the cost. So in terms of the cost of the playground, the cost of this project, we're about roughly at 3.5 million. Subtract out about 1.2 million. So we're well within that. I think John Young said we're kind of getting close to $4 million now.
I think it's almost 4.3.
How much?
4.3.
4.3, yeah.
4.3 million.
uh-huh.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. So I think we're on solid ground. The grants help greatly, and obviously,
Yeah.
that Melanie has a way of making that work.
No, that's
You're
great.
Correct that if we do not do this within the next 12 months, the grants will dissipate.
Well, Village Green needs to be done by the end of the year.
Mhm.
I'm confident it will. The playground will have till June, July timeframe, about a year from now, 2026.
Okay,
Now, with the legislation that we talked about at the council meeting last Monday, go ahead and purchase the equipment. Really, I think the thing that's going to slow us down is the design and engineering, because that won't be to us until September, the contract for that. But my experience with the Municipal Park Grant Commission has always been, if the work is underway and you're past the deadline, that's okay. It's when the work isn't even started.
started, yeah. Okay,
And I would say too, that with the SML cabin, it's definitely an expense. And we're always trying to be cost conscious but we've been holding out on this for a long time. And the other thing about it is that, to Councilman Rambo's point, it's gonna be here for a long time. This isn't like some thing we're putting together that's gonna have to be readdressed in 5 years or something. So with the additional durability of the materials we're using and everything, and you know, here in Ward 8, even where Village Green's gonna be, I have constituents that regularly ask about the Essen Log Cabin as part of the Village Green. So I do think that there is, the community is aware of the fact that we've been talking about this for a long time and that we have the materials and that we're planning to do it. So with those things being said, I think it's gonna look awesome when it's done. And it's still 300 grand, don't get me wrong. I mean, we're not
See,
not looking for ways to
I
throw
tend
it.
to look at it as a shocking, $300,000 for a cabin. And I've talked to some neighbors about that. Why would we spend that kind of money? And so it's a tough sell.
It's
I mean,
I mean,
I
History of the city.
partially it is, but at the same time too, I also think Wildwood is different as a municipality in the sense that we base.
It's different. But,
Yeah, but we base a lot of our culture and who we are as far as our parks, our history, our notoriety. We have a historic preservation committee. We talk about ourselves as being a focal point of people wanting to learn history about the county and the area.
I don't have a problem with it. It's just very costly. That's my
No, I'm
problem.
not saying it's not.
I mean, it'll be a nice fit. I mean, so
I think it's
anyway.
part of the culture of, my opinion, of course, it is.
Run it by the council, we'll see. That's all.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
can do.
So, all right, so we've got a motion to approve the committee, or to approve the department's recommendations for Shrek Construction to move forward with legislation to take this to council. We've got a second on the floor. We've had some good discussion. At this point, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, you know, one opposed.
I'll move it forward.
Okay, so we've got one opposed, any abstentions? All right. Councilmember West.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Good conversation and good discussion, which will take us into our next item on the agenda, which is the Hamilton Carr Greenway, the trail relocation project with Great Rivers Greenway. Director Vudich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this may sound a little familiar to you, but earlier this year, the department presented to the committee members a proposal from Great Rivers Greenway to do a creek stabilization project along Park Creek due to the fact that there is erosion that's occurring. The erosion now has reached a point, a critical point, where it's threatening the Hamilton Carr Greenway. The department presented the proposal, which was to do cost sharing, to the committee. The department was not an advocate for that cost sharing because it was concerned about cost. And that cost concern was legitimate. Great Rivers Greenway received an estimate from the engineer and it was in excess of $1 million. And it was a limited area where the restoration was to occur. Great Rivers Greenway took that cost under consideration and decided not to proceed forward with the restoration of the creek. In lieu of that, though, we still have the problem, and the problem is erosion along that section of Carr Creek is threatening to fail. The good news is, several years ago, Art Brown, who used to live on Old State Road, subdivision now is called Old State Place, his heirs donated to Great Rivers Greenway all the properties that the city doesn't own down in that particular area. So Great Rivers Greenway has additional land area, and now their thought is to relocate the trail and let the creek do what it's going to do for the future. It's a good solution. The land's available at no cost. The cost of the project has yet to be determined, but for the most part, we're going to be able to save the trail, keep it in use, and not have to spend it in money. Creek restoration that's could always be called in question because of its proximity to the Merrimack River. So this section of creek gets backflow from the Merrimack River when it floods, and it also gets flash flooding from the area up in Witsit Fork and beyond. So tonight, the department is advising you of the change in process and is also requesting motion to be able to sit at the table with GRG as they go through their process and ensure a reasonable trail relocation. The cost, and if those costs are reasonable, bring back to you at least what we think our role should be. Thank you.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, out of this money, there seems to be a significant element of stream bank restoration effort that's included. And it seems as though you don't have any sort of handle on what moving the trail is gonna cost versus the improvements to the drainage system. Is that an accurate assumption?
We know that the drainage was over $1 million to do the restoration of
Million
that
and
thing.
18 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that was,
That's separate?
we had talked about that earlier this year.
Okay, so you're still referring back to that project we talked about a year?
Yep.
Uh,
And that was, the expense was too much even for Great Rivers Greenway.
sure.
And so the solution to the problem was to relocate the trail. If I were to offer a guess, just knowing what I know from past trail projects, it's probably gonna be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not nowhere near $1 million+ dollars.
To move the trail itself without the stormwater?
Yep.
Wow, okay. Well, I think, I'm pretty sure that's why Mr. Farmer is here, is to discuss this topic, the drainage component versus the trail component. Did you have anything to?
I'm actually here to talk about something else, but I'm happy to talk about this when it comes.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't think we have enough information to do anything other than ask you to go sit at the table and talk with them. So it makes perfect sense to me to just authorize that, because it's a no cost effort, and you can find out a lot more info, and maybe next time come back with a better rough estimate of what our component would be, but I wouldn't see that Wildwood would have any, if we move the trail, then the stormwater problem becomes something for the future. I mean, it's not
It's
on
not going
Wildwood.
away. It's not going away.
No.
Yeah, yes, of course, it's not going away, right? But is it the most critical of our stormwater management projects? And I think quite likely not.
Oh,
So,
I don't want to interrupt, but this is part of that group, right? That we had the big like sing kumbaya meeting in here that one day.
Mhm.
Yes, the Open Space Council is doing stormwater management study in the Hamilton Carr watershed, Hamilton Carr Creek watershed. They kind of did that without providing knowledge to the city. So they got through all the different hoops and then finally realized, oh, this is in Wildwood. We probably ought to let them know what we're doing. Mr. Farmer and several of the Department of Planning and Department of Public Works team members attended a meeting with the Open Space Council. This is just to save the trail, because if the trail were to collapse into the creek, we'd have very expensive tunnel under Old State Road
Yeah.
that would not lead to anywhere. And then we'd have people obviously making their own trail. So the idea here is to address it in an appropriate manner.
stop that. Yeah. It's just, it's a lot of money, but I would say, Joe.
I don't know the cost. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, you're asking for the authority to go and discuss this further and come back with more information. So my question to you probably know, Hamilton Carr, my sense of it is that it's our least threatened watershed of all of them. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say
It's
this.
the most rural, it's probably the most rural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that all of us, and I can perhaps speak a little bit more freely than Mr. Vunich, all of us were shocked to hear about this whole exercise that was going on when they showed up and said, hey, we have a bunch of money to figure this out. And we did go to the meeting, and there was a lot of other stakeholders there. I think there was 13 different organizations or something crazy. And what I got out of the meeting was they wanted to have another plan to get another chunk of money to continue looking at the problem rather than addressing it. So
Ready to have a pile of money, you said?
they
How
got
do you feel about log cabins today?
You're right. I mean, it was a significant amount of money and they were gonna go get more of it. So I mean, I would say this, obviously fixing the watershed stuff is super important.
Right.
If it was up to me, I would say that we should maybe approach this as this is a trail thing and the watershed thing,
Yes,
while it is
yes.
within our city,
Mhm.
there are other people that have invested an enormous amount of money and someone ignored us, even though it was very clear it was, one of the people was a consultant that came to talk to us about putting a master plan together. So it wasn't that they didn't know we were doing any of this stuff.
Mhm.
So I think they've let them handle that, not to abandon our neighbors there on Hamilton Carr, but like, let them do their thing. We should focus on our trail and that's it.
Yeah, and it'll take it a while to eat 100 feet into the woods.
Yeah, this was gonna be my question.
So, okay, so everybody, else had a chance to speak besides me, so I was gonna make a motion, but I will, wait.
But you can make the motion,
You
we
said
can
it, you said it
discuss.
all, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead. Make-
I move that we authorize the department to go forward with discussions and come back with better numbers and a better feel for what's possible in Wildwood's environment and with our budget.
Okay, so we've got a motion.
Oh, no, that's got a
Anybody like to
question.
second the motion, then we can have discussion.
I'll second.
Councilmember Dodd will second the motion, so we've got the motion on the floor for the department to go have further conversations and bring back more information and numbers, so that's the motion second, so now discussion on the floor, Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yeah, so Joe, when you were talking about that area backing up because of the Merrimack, so is this reasonable to move the trail, or are we going to have a flooding incident when it rains and pours like it does sometimes?
Well, that whole area, basically from the tunnel at Old State Road and Route 109 down to the river, floods when it gets to a certain
Mhm.
crest. And so no matter where we put the trail down in that area, it's going to go underwater. We take that into account with the design, but it is floodplain and it actually floods. And so, yes.
Councilmember Dodwell?
Real quickly, are you looking to put this into the 2026 budget, or you don't know the answer to that yet?
I don't know the timeframe, the exact timeframe of Great Rivers Greenway.
Okay,
If they're farther ahead than I think they are, then yes, it could be part of our discussion.
okay.
Tom and Mr. Farmer will be talking about our capital improvements 2026 process tonight. And so from that perspective, starting a lot earlier, at least that's what the Administration and Public Works Committee wants to do. We'll start talking sooner than later.
I would just ask that when you discuss with them, find out what their timeline is, both on a safety perspective from, is this going to collapse in 6 months, or is it going to collapse in the next possibly 2 years or something? So we have some sense of,
I don't think they'll be able to answer.
okay,
That's kind of where we're at with a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
It's just,
okay.
it's in bad shape.
It's
It
in
could
bad
break at
shape.
some point.
Is 100 feet, and here's my last question. Is 100 feet or 100 yards even enough?
That is,
100 feet doesn't sound like enough to me, but
that is a question I would pose for you to the engineering team.
okay.
Let's- If we know the rate of erosion that's occurred since this was first identified till now, and if that were to continue,
What's been the rate of
what's a
erosion?
reasonable distance so that we're not back here in a couple of years?
Okay,
And I
so,
will tell you that we have had to put emergency fencing along the edge of the trail. We had a photograph that was taken by one of the GRG team members, and I think it's about 18 inches from the edge of the trail right
okay,
now. So it's pretty close.
That's one storm.
that's, yeah,
Your line doesn't reflect reality, it's just, here's where the general area is. Is that
Yep.
accurate?
okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for Director Vunich and the department to go have a further conversation and get some more information about the details of what's looking to be done and what the numbers are gonna play out to be, so that we can have a more robust conversation about what makes sense and how we wanna approach it. Cause I think right now, we have a general idea, but we're kind of shooting in the dark as far as being able to have a detailed conversation. So with that being said, in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. That takes us to the next item on the agenda, which is Village Green Phase One update here in Ward 8 and Director Vudic.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as has been the practice of the department since the construction of Village Green Phase One began, a monthly report is being provided tonight. There are some good news in the report. First and foremost, as of July 17th, which was last Tuesday, the representative from Ameren, Missouri was contacted, responded back. We expect to have Ameren, Missouri personnel out at the site latter part of this week or next week, beginning the undergrounding of the overhead utility line. The second part of that good news is based upon Ameren, Missouri's work and their decision to change from using duct banked to underground line to a switchgear closer to the origin of the overhead lines, that cost reduction is about $100,000. And so that's a pretty significant savings on this particular change order. The change order was presented in the form or the purchase order with Ameren, Missouri for the work was presented to City Council a week ago Monday. It's authorized by 2 readings. So good news, we're moving forward. Also, as you can see, if you took a ride back or walked back aisle Village Green, flat work subcontractor has been forming out a lot of the additional around the utility lines in anticipation of that work beginning here very shortly. So once the utility lines are removed, I've been promised by our contractor that a lot of what you see, weather permitting, will get underway pretty quickly because they've done the pre-work in advance of it. Just in terms of change orders, we're, I think, up to, I counted up to about 10, 9, 10, 11. And the 11th one is just, we're trying to figure out the final designs relative to the relocation of the Mayor's Grove. And then finally, all told to date, we paid out $1.5 million for the work that's been completed. And just as a reminder, the majority of that amount, don't know a particular percentage, was spent early on when we did the stormwater management system, which included several large areas of underground detention improvements. And those were expensive, obviously. The benefit of underground detention, as you know, if we did surface detention, that would have created basically a moat that would have precluded people coming off of future Main Street into the park directly. They would have had to walk to one end or the other. And secondly, it gives us more space for more use. And so that's the update tonight. As I say, pray every morning that I see a bunch of Ameren, Missouri trucks at the end of Main Street when I come to work. Someday that prayer will be answered. Hopefully, Mr. Talley in Missouri over the Ellisville district has a good feel or pulse on what their crews are able to do. If there are any questions, Melanie and I'd be glad.
Okay, thank you for the update. Does anybody have any questions related to the update? Awesome. Well, that's great news on the change order.
You know, utilities are utilities, but in this particular case, I can only say that they really stepped up and did a great service. And the switchgear will be a good solution, and it's a good solution for the future, even inclusive of phase 2 and any future phases, and when Main Street is finally constructed.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, which takes us into the Village Green Phase 2 update here in Ward 8. Roberto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. This, of course, is a a feel-good project, so it's fun to present on. At the city council meeting on July 14th, Unlimited Play was approved as a single source contractor. So things are moving on the back end as far as engineering and design are concerned on that. But what the department has been busy working on ourselves is more of the fundraising component. And the department reached out to Paula Vasson, our communications and economic development manager, and her enthusiasm might just carry this all the way through. She has been a delight to work with and has reached out to the parents that came to that first meeting to bring this to the committee's attention. And they were thrilled to hear, about us moving forward and everything that's going on. And, it was very well received and sent us quotes and photographs of the children. I included some of them in your packet. It was really heartwarming to talk to them and read all the things. We also included a list of notes, just kind of takeaways that she got out of having conversations. And so she also plans to include things like this in, promoting it like, monthly or whatnot. These are things that can be discussed with the committee. And so it's super exciting. And we took that information along with all of the feedback that we received from the committee on the brochure, and they managed to knock this out pretty quickly. And if you took a look through it, they included some of the quotes and photographs in the very beginning of our brochure, which was one of the comments from the committee that it needed to be more personalized. And Wildwood Speaks, I liked that touch as well. And then this did not change. This is still kind of the background of the Village Green and how it's supposed to be a place for everyone. And now it truly will be. And then they use some of the blank space to include some photographs of, kids on the actual all-inclusive equipment. And these have not changed. These still have the same sponsorship levels, sponsorship amounts. And then the final page is where the majority of the changes took place. So we left in, I think we eliminated one tier on here, but you'll see that there are different tiers. And then we also included what the recognition would be in this. And so people knew what they were, like what they were sponsoring, what they'd be getting out of it. And so each tier they would get, the same recognition as the other tiers below it. It would be like an adding to instead of this is only it. And we came up with the idea of, since we're gonna have those fabulous new light fixtures in the Village Green, maybe having grand opening banners, because I love my banners. And have
Favorite
those up
thing to
and
do.
maybe leave them up for a year or so, or however long. But so that was one of those grand opening banners in Village Green. And then for the higher levels, it would be like a commemorative brick would be included. And for the highest level would be commemorative signage. And they sent over some examples of signage used in some of their parks, and they have, the grand archway going into at least one of their parks, but this was kind of what I think is your more traditional, the membership levels on that. You can't see it real well in here, but on the fence, they have carved into it sponsor levels, which, I thought wasn't, it was subtle enough. And so, but then they also have, more of a plaque kind of feature. And so these things don't need to be decided today. These things can be decided at a later date. But while the department was discussing this, thought maybe if we could work out, these are sculptures that came from Sculpture on the Move, and thought that maybe we could work it in like kind of like along the pathway going into the park, if we could meet with one of the local sculptors or whatnot and see if we could potentially add, a name, a logo, something, a sponsor to the flowers going in. So then it would
Yeah.
also add community art along the way into it and be our own original kind of statement for like the top donors or something like that. Either way, again, I don't want to get you too sidetracked with this because we have time to decide on that. We literally put in the brochure signage, and so we can investigate and see what our options are and bring that back at a later date. I was just excited and thought I'd share it early. So that was that. But I think that they took a lot of our interests and everything into mind. The landing page for Unlimited Play, you can go to their website, and if you go to parks, there's actually the Village Green is on there already. It has just a very brief backstory, and once the brochure has been approved, that will go in there, and we can start taking donations as soon as we're ready to go. And they also have a flyover, which I was hoping to have tonight to show you, but it's not quite ready, and they said it'll be done in a couple of weeks, so probably another week from now. But that will also be, it'll be, the really cool flyover of the equipment, as you're going through the park, and then it also shows all of the equipment and such, and so it'll be a great little donation page leading into it. And so we're making real progress. Also in the process of reaching out to our residents that came and spoke that night. Paula also asked them if they'd be so inclined to, help on this fundraising committee, which would be an informal committee that meet, once a month or as needed. It might be more often at the beginning while the training is happening, because Unlimited Play will train everyone in how to deliver the message and the best ways to, approach people, or the best, organizations and stuff like this to approach. And so that being said, we had 3 of the parents, Chelsea Bellew, Kathy LaRocco, and Valerie Peterson, all say that they would be most interested in assisting with this. Council member Wroblewski, I'm sorry, also volunteered to be a part of this. And Paula, I don't think that you could keep her off of the committee. She is so excited about it. It's fantastic. And so they've definitely all said that they'd be interested. And there were a few others that we hadn't heard back from yet. So I don't know if they have interest as well. But as far as Unlimited Play was saying, 5 to 10 people on the committee, and people can also join later if we find people that are interested in being a part of it. And it's an unofficial kind of committee, so therefore we don't need to have appointment by the council, and so we can take people in and such. And so that being said, we are well on our way, and Unlimited Play said that they are ready to go when we're ready to go. And so that is also a bonus. So tonight, the department is seeking feedback on the revised brochure. If we can move forward with this, if the committee members that we listed were also okay as far as moving forward with that, and or if there were any other suggestions of people that would like to be or should be a part of this. And so that being said, that concludes the department's presentation, but if you have any questions, Director Vunich or I are happy to take them.
I got Councilman Rambo first. Councilman Dodwell.
Did Unlimited Play lend their expertise to these sponsorship levels? There's a gulf between Park Pal at 10K and Park Pro at 50. And the only thing spanning it is a commemorative brick in Village Green. And so if the upper 2, 50 and 100K plus are for corporate sponsors, that seems fine, but we should, sort of spell that out, because there's not going to be a lot of citizens able to come up with 50. There's some that can probably come up with 10, but it seems it seems like maybe, go ahead.
I think it's high. I would divide this by 2 is what I would do.
Okay.
Like your Park Hero, make it that 50, Park Pro 25.
It can be the 100 and 1,000 can still be fine, but then $5,000, $10,000, something like that.
So the thoughts behind it when discussing it with Unlimited Play is it's more about recognition. Like somebody could donate $101. It's just that once you hit the $100, then you get recognition on the website, which would then capture our, say, smaller businesses that, they still get recognition on the website. And then the higher ones, you can donate 25,000. There's nothing that's stopping
Sure,
that.
like
It's
Jim's
just that,
suggesting of finer gradations between, and that's
Sure.
what I was trying to point out as well.
Okay. And we also have the equipment that provides more of, some of those are 1,000, some of them 5,000, some of them 500. And so there's more diversity there,
I
like
could barely afford a brick at Old Pond School.
the bricks
Oh,
were
years ago,
not
I-
cheap.
If you look above.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that when it comes down to, the bricks, like those are, $200 for us to like purchase. And so when you want, like, when the higher donations tend to go with that. We actually significantly lowered what they originally had.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they have
So
one
they're
of their
definitely
parks that's
efficient
like,
for
the top one
corporate.
is $450,000. Yeah, it's, and so I think that they set their aspiration levels pretty high.
If you notice on I'm gonna interrupt here just so everybody understands. If you notice on the donation agreement page, you can give a one-time donation of any amount,
Any amount.
a recurring contribution. You can select an equipment piece specifically. And then if you have a business, you could have or you have the ability to get donations from the company that you work for. I was just gonna say maybe that in-kind gift.
Mhm.
Is there any way to put a reminder on there that says, if you're giving to this not-for-profit organization,
Mhm.
remember to ask AB for a benefit from that as well. A lot of companies, if you donate something, they'll donate 50% towards the same cause or 25% or something like that. So I would just
So-
make sure that we put something that,
Yeah,
but
the
the
in-kind.
way this is laid out, it certainly gives people the ability to make any kind of donation they choose.
Well, sure, but it was about the recognition thereof,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm trying to drill down to.
Okay.
I mean, so if anybody does anywhere between 10,000 and 49,999, they're gonna get the banner in Village Green, right? And then from 50 to 100, they're gonna get the brick. So they'll still
They would
get
also get the
that.
commemorative banner, and then they would also
If
get like.
you're
all of
generous
the,
enough to give 40K, there's gotta be something in between there, and it can't be every dollar gets you something more, but I'm suggesting that from 10 to 50 is a big jump, and from 50 to 100 is a big jump. And if we're having a separate corporate sponsorship thing, we can offer a few higher level incentives to the Deerbergs of the world that would love to have their corporate logo there, right?
Mhm.
And that's separate from folks that just wanna be generous and, donate for kids to have a place to play.
Sure, and like, yeah, their thoughts behind it were like $100, like that gets people recognized, $1,000, like that's might be affordable as well. The others were more corporate based and you don't want signage all over the place per se.
Sure.
But I mean, if they're completely flexible, and I was even thinking the park hero, because we don't really know what kind of donations are gonna come in. We
Yeah.
could even have it as like top 5 donors or something like that, rather than having it at 100,000. That way it's whoever donates the most. And so.
And I mean,
that's-
up to 10,000, those are just either digital recognitions or just grand opening, right? So that's nothing permanent that's going in the park.
Correct.
It's only when you get to the 10,000 plus, but so maybe you put in there. Cause I can see what you're talking about, Councilman Ramey.
Yeah, it's just.
Maybe you throw in a 25,000 between the 10 and the 50 and maybe a 5.
Five, yeah,
the 1 and
something
the
like that.
10, just to add something different. But of course, the 5,000 would also be another temporary. It wouldn't be a permanent thing, right? Cause even the 10,000 is not permanent. It's a grand opening banner.
Well, the prices on the public art that we were looking at separately, those are like in the $5,000 range, and we could, if people wanna buy one of those, it adds to the park. I mean, it doesn't buy a piece of equipment, but it's something that way we can, we'll have it permanently, for example. We won't have to go back to them every year and try to rent these things for 2 years.
Sure, and that was kind of the thought process behind it. Maybe we could work with one of these like artists
Yeah.
to actually incorporate signage into it in a way that doesn't look like it's just glued onto the artwork.
Yeah, I was
And
following
then-
up on your.
Yeah, and so that was kind of the thought behind it was, but like reserving that for like the top, say 5 donors or something, because they are pricey for those sculptures, some of them, you know?
And are the people that like, so if somebody puts on here, like it says for equipment piece, and you get like 30 people that sponsor an equipment piece, right?
It would be broken down the same way that that bracket is, like if the equipment is,
Oh, it's still
Right.
based on the cost.
yeah, then the recognition is still based on
Got
the
it,
sponsorship like level.
got it.
Based on what Michael just said. So if a group of people go in for a donation,
Uh-huh.
then how are they recognized?
The organization they represent.
That's what I was gonna say, is usually like in the brochure, it says for recognition purposes, please list how you'd like your gift acknowledged. And so, we would have to limit the number of like words.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a neighborhood or,
A
you
bunch
know,
of friends that get
to
together.
get together.
Right.
So how are you gonna acknowledge that? I mean,
Well, we would have to limit the number of characters, which is standard for any kind of recognition. Like, you're not gonna list out everybody's name in said organization, but it could be, Bellevue Farms HOA or something like that. So they would have to figure out how they want to be recognized, and we would just have to limit the characters based on
Space.
space, because you couldn't fit all those names on a brick anyway. It would be challenging. It'd be a lot of bricks.
Just build a digital ad board and run a ticker all the time.
Digital signs,
Can individuals still buy a brick?
Oh, yeah, so the bricks are still available through the Village Green, period. This was just kind of a bonus, for, contributing, you get permanent
For
recognition
the-
in the parks.
For the
Councilwoman
playground.
Robles,
I don't think Jim Cranston got to speak. Did you?
you asked your question earlier, Jim, didn't you?
Did you?
You were asking about the levels?
Yeah, I just think it's high, the sponsorship.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you got to speak before I made a comment. Did we ever hear back officially if they would allow us to put a link for the bricks on their site on Unlimited Play?
So we discussed it, and it's challenging for them to do so. They have done it for other cities, but it's complicated when they do the bricks. And since we already had the bricks in in place for the Celebrate Wildwood, going through that is just easier, and then that way we can order a brick through the same organization that's doing them anyway, rather than having them listed in multiple places. And so having them as kind of two separate entities was kind of the idea.
And then my only other comment was, I feel like if you donate $10,000, you should at least get a $200 brick at a lower level.
We can work on the,
To consider what they get as part of the
Yeah, there's a lot of
process.
bricks
yeah,
out
that's
there.
what I was just getting ready to
There's
say.
a lot of bricks out there.
well, and maybe that's a discussion for the committee,
Yeah.
like the subcommittee,
That gets together.
the fundraising group to, iron out those details. But
So
What's your timeline here to get this going, to see how much money you're gonna generate?
the sooner the better. Like, that's it, is that, every month that goes by, we're losing that month.
If it keeps coming in, we will jack the price up, right?
Yeah, and so again, we were, hoping that to get this moving forward, that we could actually work on the fundraising component. And the committee can meet with Unlimited Play, get their training, and get this up on the website and up and
I
running.
can make a motion to move forward.
yeah, do we have a second?
Second,
Second, Councilman John. So the motion is to move forward with establishing the fundraising committee and then taking the feedback you've gotten from this committee today to present to that committee and then let them work with Unlimited Play on implementing all these things. And
Perfect.
all right, so that's the motion on the floor, and we've had some good discussions. Anybody have anything additional to add?
just one more thing.
Yeah.
Can we please get this committee to put together some kind of a flyer, some kind of a notification to the citizens before Celebrate Wildwood, so that
Mhm.
at that event, we have the ability to get more funds from the public,
Um,
and
What did
so
you-
they don't get their name on something that doesn't
what
really.
did you think of the business cards that we did for the survey? Like, do you think that something like that would be helpful to have for people when people are chatting about it, to have it in their pocket?
It's too tiny.
Okay. Cause we'll have a QR code that will take people to the landing page that will take them to all of this information. Like that's our goal, is to get people there. And so.
Click on the U.
Councilmember Hutchins.
So are we gonna have like a booth at Celebrate Wildwood? And you know, sometimes they have those little tiny miniature, I don't know what you wanna call it, of the playground equipment. And if we could have some of that maybe at the booth. And then have a booth and somebody could stand there and talk to them about it.
If nothing else, we can definitely like blow up images and have them on easels. We can make this definitely a conversation. And that, again, I would hope the committee, you know, would want to participate, and hopefully we get some of the parents there and they could like share their stories. Because I mean, I was almost sobbing during that planning and parks meeting. So I feel like putting that personal touch in it also helps, you know, and knowing
Yeah,
the direct.
I think if you can get,
Stories there too.
I mean, they'll give out those little models, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I'll reach
Yeah.
out to them and see if they have something like that. That could be fun for sure.
Yeah, and I think that might get somebody to say, oh, I'm gonna donate because they can actually see,
Uh-huh.
except it's smaller than what it's gonna be, but I think that would help.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what we can find.
Councilmember Farmer?
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest, I would try our best not to like overcomplicate this thing too
Yeah.
much. You know, when you go to, you know, museums or whatever it is, there's a plaque on a wall that says, these are our platinum people with
Yep.
names, and these are this with names.
Yeah,
We don't have to expend $200 a brick to take that out of that money. I would also say, Celebrate Wildwood, we've got a great communicator as the mayor, have him go up there and talk about this thing from the stage. If we can get these kids, have them go up on stage, have a QR code. And I don't know legally, maybe Tom or John or somebody can figure this out, like this should be something as simple as like almost like a GoFundMe thing, where it's
Yeah.
just, people are dumping money in like tomorrow. This should be strictly digital stuff put out on our Facebook pages, let Paula do her thing, but like
Mhm.
business cards and all that are just gonna be, it's just an expense to get what they're gonna do anyways.
Sure, and that was kind of the thought, is that, you know, like having the lower levels, it would be recognition on our social media, and Paula would run like a spotlight via social media for, say, the business or whoever, and.
I don't even know if you need to do that. I'm saying like, when you walk into the park,
Uh-huh.
there's a nice, you know, carved, however we wanna do it. that-
pictures of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
We talked about
List
that
out
from
who
the
those
beginning.
things are, and because I think people, you know, a lot of times, you know, anything that we're spending money on to give them a recognition of this is just taking that amount of money away from whatever they were giving us.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, but I feel like at $50,000, we can take $200 for a brick.
Yeah, but
Um,
at the same time, like, you know, if somebody's giving us $50,000,
Sure.
they don't care if they're getting a brick.
They don't care.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that the committee could probably narrow this down and fine tune it a bit. I think that
We had a big discussion about a kiosk,
reasonable.
2 inch by 3 inch. Here's your name, and if you're in the bronze group or.
Well, and maybe it's just digital recognition for the $100 or so. That I think was mostly just for small businesses that aren't getting this $1,000, but we would still like to recognize, because you don't want 1,000 names on there. But they do, like, you know, we could do something like this that has the different, you know, levels shown on it and show all the people. We have no idea what we're getting.
I would
And
look
so
at the
just
zoo.
having
I think-
signage on
Yeah,
there
look at the
kind
zoo.
of left that.
I think I
They
agree.
need to come to the meetings. man.
I agree with that in the sense that it's gotta be simple,
Yeah,
straightforward, nothing elaborate, because it's just you're giving some recognition, but you're not spending thousands building this thing out for it. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, that's a conversation that the committee's gonna be having, working. We don't have to decide all that
No.
tonight.
right.
The committee's gonna be working on this with Unlimited Play to figure out what the best plan's gonna be, but I would take these points into consideration on the committee to move forward, but okay,
Question,
Excellent.
yes, Councilmember Graham.
as long as people can find their name, they don't care if it's small, as long as their peers are equally small. That's what I think. But I was asked to ask you if the city is planning to give folks tax receipts for a nonprofit donation. Has that been discussed, or I may not even be asking that right, but
It has not been discussed. I assume that Unlimited Play, who will be taking all the donations, has a means of doing that. That is a very
Yeah,
good
very-
question that
we need to verify
we
that.
will have that conversation
Because
with
everybody's
Unlimited
gonna
Play.
wanna know that.
Yeah.
So we do,
Especially the ones donating tens.
Yeah.
Of hundreds of thousands.
Thanks to
so
our
we've got a motion on the floor and a second to establish the committee. How to move forward with unlimited play. I'm working on this, having these conversations, taking all this feedback and filling out a really cool fundraising plan. So with that being said, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you so much.
Good
Awesome.
work.
Thank you.
Nice work, very good. The last items on the Parks Matters are for information purposes, the Wild and Recreation Programming Update and Facility Reservations. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, input? All right, well, that will then wrap up our Parks Matters and take us into our Planning Matters, which we have 6 items for consideration. First being the Historic Preservation Plan, open house and focus groups, including all wards, and Director Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this is an informational item. Part of the memorandum, there's an itinerary that's attached relative to our consultant for the Historic Preservation Plan. This consultant will be in town starting late Wednesday, arriving from Colorado, and will be working Thursday and Friday. The itinerary sets forth a number of different meetings and focus group encounters. So if you're interested in any of them, please feel free to attend. Otherwise, the open house, the community open house is Thursday, July 24th, 5:30. Excuse me, from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Be held over in the council chambers. If there's any questions?
What's a city tour about?
The 2 consultants from MIG will be coming into town. Robin and I, and maybe someone else, will take them out in the van and just show them different
Downtown area.
communities, the major landmarks such as Big Chief, et cetera, just to give them an idea. They've seen it in photographs and different things, but it's not the same unless you kind of step out of the van and can touch it. Okay.
Hey, Councilor Lewski.
I was just gonna say, can we send it as an email to city council? Cause I noticed in the report it said inviting city council, but if I wouldn't have read that report, I wouldn't have probably realized. And if you sent something already, I totally missed it, but it might be a good reminder for city council if they have the ability to come on Thursday to send a note.
Not do it the first thing tomorrow morning, but it'll be on the top of the list. So we'll get something out about the open house.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, Director Vunich. Takes us to our next item, which is standardized monthly reporting template for code enforcement and also includes municipal court and police activities. City Administrator Lee.
Thank you, Councilor Chair Galani. This is an item that's been discussed at the Administration Public Works Committee, and we wanted to bring it on over to the Planning and Parks Committee for consideration as well, considering the code enforcement would fall under planning. We also have the Chair of the Administration Public Works Committee, Chair Farmer, here with us tonight. But we really wanted to just go over what we are currently working on and what we're planning on presenting to the council in the upcoming month. We are kind of reformatting some of our reporting for both court and also for our code enforcement. Right now, the council receives the standardized police reporting that there's an example attached to the agenda tonight that shows what the officers are currently providing. That said, we're almost trying to mimic this kind of longitudinal way of looking at the data for also code enforcement and court reporting. So kind of seeing how all of these things funnel together, even though there are some discrepancies with, if someone gets pulled over or something like that, you get a call, it doesn't always necessarily result in a court case. And the same can go for a call that's a code enforcement violation. So that said, we're trying to look at it from a standardized way and be able to provide that on a monthly basis and then show pretty much a year-to-date breakdown and then also show the month before comparison. So to kind of show that immediate trend and then also show more of a long-term change. So that is expected here in August to start kind of sending these out. This would go out with just a CA report that goes out and would be attached to the council agenda as well. The other item, just items that are getting covered under code enforcement, would be pretty high level, but there would also be kind of an executive summary under each that kind of shows some of the trends that we're seeing. Over the winter, we typically see code enforcement issues die down a bit, but over the summer it spikes up and takes up quite a bit of time. That said, what would be covered would be reported violations. The actual number of working violations, we're calling it, is what has been reported and is now currently being investigated by our code enforcement team, but it hasn't necessarily gotten to court or has had a resolution. The number of corrected violations in that period of time, it's termed invalid violations. That said, what that actually means is that there was a report done and it didn't end up having any issue. It was not correct. The total violations in general, and then just the number of inspections that are occurring. Like I said, with this reporting, we would hope to have an executive summary included that shows the general trends of it, but not necessarily getting into too much detail because we can't get into, until it goes to court, we don't want to be providing information on the individual that's being called on just because that could result in some legal issues. On the court side, and adding on to it, this would also get a little bit more of a boost in the reporting, just showing a breakdown of the type of cases. Right now in the monthly reporting, it does show the number of cases total, but we're going to break that out into the 4 categories that they're coded as: traffic, code enforcement, general ordinance violations, which can be anything from noise violation, etc., and then domestic assault. That is another category that we don't have too much here in Wildwood, luckily. And then the other items would be a little bit more high level, but the number of convictions, number of active cases, number of new tickets, the summons filed, warrants issued that month, and the number of closed cases during that same period. So the idea would be to also have this show the month-to-month change, but also year-to-date, so we could kind of highlight trends and look at the overall impact the court's making, but also having some type of really high-level executive summary that's showing what are the types of cases that are coming to the court most often, just to give a little bit more of a high-level overview and help the council make appropriate decisions on how we should run our courts, but also help with the code enforcement side too. I know Chair Farmer from Admin PW is also here tonight, so I don't want to, if the chair is happy with it, we can have him discuss as well. But this would be expected to be turned in August, but we wanted to get initial feedback and see what the committee thinks. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Lee. Councilor Farmer?
Yeah, so basically, Tom and the mayor and I have had some conversations with our city prosecutor. We've talked with Mr. Vunich about some code enforcement stuff. And I've had conversations with Catherine Mundell about the police reports. And the idea is, like, wherever we are having more information is always better, and transparent information really works well. But especially like when it comes to our police contract and things like that, where it's a really enormous amount of money, we need to have some clarity of what the data they're giving us actually means. The same thing when it comes to like some code enforcement stuff. Like, we don't need to get into the specifics about this house had a chicken or whatever it was, but it would be nice to know, hey, in Ward 4, we wrote 85 things and 43 of them have been taken care of and 26 of them have been taken to court. And when we wrote these things, like, this house had 17 of these things written on it. We're not giving you the specific address, but just know a lot have been done. And then that way, at least I know for myself, I get a lot of calls from people about what is going on with the code situation, and I don't really know. There's certain things we can't get. So we wanted to try to figure out a way to say, hey, this is what's going on. And in the same way with Frank and Brian, our code enforcement guys, give them the ability to actually communicate what is going on. So there's a couple particulars that we're working on in Admin PW where, right now there's a legal process that they have to go through on some of this stuff, which obviously we're not going to change. But the idea would be, we can get them a sort of thermal printer that's in the truck so they can leave a notice saying they're not maybe able to hand it directly to somebody, but go, hey, here's what's going on. And then it triggers a thing that sends out a letter immediately so that they can get going. So it's designed to kind of make our process a little bit more clear and then get the information we want. Same thing with the court report. Like, right now, our court report is just a financial component, which, especially based on everything that happened in Ferguson a few years ago, that is literally the last possible thing that we should be concerned about. So it should be more like, we wrote 175 speeding tickets this month. Last month, we wrote 53, and then we get to go, why is that happening? So it's just designed to kind of give us all a very clear picture of what's going on without, some vagary, because just like there are reasons that we don't get specific information from code enforcement. There are also reasons that when code enforcement escalates it to a certain point, they aren't getting certain information back from the courts. And so as much as possible, we want to try to keep that information as clear as we can while not blurring the responsibility lines of who gets to say what. So that's the goal.
Cool. Anybody have any questions?
Did we consider any sort of geographic or map of this data? I know you probably can't, depending on what the issue is, pinpoint it on a particular location or address, but maybe by ward. or-
Yeah. The ward thing is the ward thing is really kind of where it's gonna be. And I mean, the expectation, and we haven't really talked a lot about this, but like, in wards 2 and 4, there's probably gonna be a lot more issues with like length of grass than out in ward 6. They're just gonna be sort of different stuff.
Right.
And that's okay, but we also wanna make sure that like, one of the things that sort of comes back a lot is we will have certain properties where it's the same problem every year at a certain time. And so kind of as a reminder to be like, hey, we are out talking to these people, we've started this conversation again. Because the truth of the matter is, the vast majority of our citizens do great with all of this stuff. There are a few people that, things slip between the cracks or whatever you wanna call it, and that just happens. And then there are other ones, as I'm sure Mr. Vunich and Melanie can attest to, that just don't care about any of these things. And those are the ones that I think it's important where it's not necessarily calling them out publicly, but it's important for us to know, hey, yes, this property that everybody knows is an issue did in fact have 45 code enforcement things written on it. I had that like last week. I had a woman that called and was really upset because she had 12 code violations and thought that the HOA had something to do with it. And I was like, not the HOA, but as your city representative, I can tell you, they probably came out to talk to you about one thing and they happened to find all these other things. And so they wanted you to address them all at once rather than going, thanks for fixing that. Now here's the next thing. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is to get it where, especially when it comes to the budgetary stuff, which we're gonna talk about here in a minute, like some of these data points we just need to be able to have to make the best financial decisions that we can. It's not really about making people feel bad. It's just giving us the tools to understand what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think it's also when you can have intelligent conversations with people when they bring up concerns, say, hey, you had 25 violations in the past 12 months. I don't think it's the city's the problem, maybe it's you.
Right. Right.
We ran into that problem with the issue in Point Clayton and that one house that we discussed last year around this time that hasn't been upkeeping their house. Things are falling down in it. You can look in the windows and there's nobody living in that house. And so,
Typically, if you have somebody that's a repeat offender of violating code and ordinances, they'll have their own set of facts when you talk to them about what's actually happened or not. But if you can sit there and be like, here, we've got a list of the citations.
And this also helps too, because as it goes up the line, like the pushback that not pushback, the response that they give the court, when somebody's brought to court, their response is almost always, I didn't know I couldn't do that, or I didn't know that this was a problem. And so when we have better data to go, hey, we've talked to you about this
20 times.
20 times, 6 years in a row, then that also allows the judge and our prosecutor to understand what's going on. This isn't to say we want, him to rule with an iron fist or whatever you wanna call it, but it is important for us to understand, hey, this number of things went this direction, this number didn't. And we are really very limited in how we can find things. So there are certain issues that it is honestly cheaper for them to just pay their fine violations than to fix the problem. And that's what a lot of people are gonna do. And that's okay. Then it just helps us to know, hey, these are these situations. So like, be forthcoming with your neighbors. That thing is gonna be there because there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
It should help with those kind of conversations.
For sure. Councilor McCutcheon?
Yeah, so I don't quite follow it. I mean, the departments get that information and they're the ones that have the authority to do something about it. I mean, as council members, we can't go knock on the door and say, you got 6 violations.
No, we're not going to.
I mean, so I don't really understand why you think it's important that the council members have this information.
Well, I mean, it's important for me as a council person to know that in my ward, somebody wrote 175 violations, and in Ward 6, they wrote 800 or 3. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it helps to see where the activity is happening. It helps for us to be able to communicate to our residents, hey guys, in the spring, like, let's make sure we're cutting the grass because, it used to be we needed to start cutting it in May and now we need to start cutting it in March so we don't get all these violations or whatever it is. It's just a tool and it's even a tool for our HOA representatives to understand what's going on, because they all have, rules that are more or less unenforceable. And so being able to say, hey, this is the stuff that can be done, this is the things that can't be done, and just being transparent about what's happening. I mean, it's important, I think it's important when we are specific to the police, when we're paying them upwards of $6 million and we have no understanding of whether what they're doing is good or bad. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, you guys are doing a great job, but like I noticed, for instance, we had a report in May where I think, Tom, I don't know if you'll remember, I think we talked about this, there was like a 50% drop in something.
And
And
what?
It was like police action or something that seems like it shouldn't have a 50% drop, or if it did, maybe a sentence about why. Because, where we're at from a city standpoint, if that information, which is public, was picked up and misinterpreted by the public, this year we dropped our number of police officers by 2 because they just changed the way that they do their hours. But if you're looking at a report and now all of a sudden something is 50% less, it raised a small red flag to me to just be like, hey, what's up with this?
You manage the data.
Right, so it's just a data point to be able to go, hey, this is what's happening, this is kind of an encapsulation of what's going on. And if that's not something that really floats your boat, that's okay. If it is, then great, but it gives us the tools right now that we don't have, and it puts a level of consistency across all of our kind of enforcement data, whether it's the courts or the police or our code guys, like it's all kind of they're different but similar, and so we should report them in the same way.
But we already get that information.
We get some of that information.
We get very little of that
It's just
information.
detail.
Well, we already get the court information, we already get the police information, they put out reports ever so often.
They're very bad, and the court information tells us how much money we make, which is not what we're supposed to be looking at.
No, we're looking at what kind.
I mean, we're not an enforcement agency, I'm having trouble with that, we are not an enforcement agency.
That's okay. You can have trouble with it all you like.
It's just data. It's just data.
It's just
I
data.
have trouble too.
I think what Councilmember Farmer was talking about as far as just providing us the ability, if you want to dive into it and learn more and understand more about what's going on in these details, you can. You're not gonna get tested on it or required to know all those details, but I think being able to have, as a council member, if I have people from Ward 8 where we have a lot of traffic and businesses, and I have someone from Cherry Hills that comes to me and says, hey, how come there was 35 tickets written or like we were saying, like there's a discrepancy.
Right.
And maybe there was a sign that just got installed or something that I wasn't aware of, like in some corner of the neighborhood. But now if I have that data at my fingertips, I can go peruse it on a semi-regular basis. Or if somebody asks me a question and sends me an email, I know where to go really quick to have some of that data to say, hey, well, this is what happened, or we've done this, it's just more data at your fingertips to be able to make educated decisions and conversations. But it's not something that you have to sit there and look at and
Well, I'm
Yeah,
not even,
it's just more details on what we already get versus the
Better
monetary
pictures.
component to say, here's the actual why of what happened that led to the revenue that we're seeing on this sheet.
Compare from last year, and like Joe said, you see a drop, why is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I'm certain, a very good reason. It's just, it's an important thing to share.
So I'll make a motion with this forward.
Are you looking for a motion or is this
I think it's
just an
important to,
update?
yeah, I mean,
We're doing
so this is just, what we're trying to do is by the time it gets to the council, because the idea is with a lot of these things to try to move them relatively quickly, because the sooner we do it, the better, and like Tom and these guys would like to start getting this spun out like next month.
Yeah.
So really, it's just to try to have any conversations that seem or highlight any big issues.
I guess the question is that what will come up in the council, if not here now, is is there a cost to implement any of this, or is this just part of the everyday?
It's really, I
So
mean,
there's
no cost. The only cost that could happen down the road is if we do the printers in the truck and we are doing that. But even then, like without having the data available to go, hey, we tried to talk to these people, like and nobody's ever home or whatever it is. It's hard for me to go, well, then we should spend $1,200 on an in-car thermal printer
Right.
because I don't know if we need it or not.
For the time being right now, we're just utilizing the assets and resources we have to just provide additional data to be reviewed.
Correct.
So I mean, it can't hurt anybody for sure.
The data, I think, is gonna be more important to the city staff.
That's what
If
I was
you're,
saying.
you're a code enforcement person, it would be nice to be able to look up and go, okay, I know I've been here many times. How many times have I been here? I can walk into that, up to that person's door and say, I've talked to you about this 10 times. This is getting old. Or they can go to the HOA
Mhm.
or their council member and say, this has happened 10 times. Can we put together a game plan on how we can work with this particular resident so that we don't have this happening anymore? Is
And
it?
and it helps perceptions. I mean, I haven't spoken a ton to Frank and Brian. I know I've talked to Joe a lot about it. I mean, that is, code enforcement is just by nature an incredibly thankless job.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing this and you're doing it to the best of your ability and all you hear from the residents or council members or whatever is you're not doing enough, that's not good. At the same time, if you're doing your work and you're sending it to the court and then these things are going to the court and just stalling or whatever, that also means, why, at what point do you just go, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
And so trying to get those pieces of information to see this is how this all flows together, that's important.
But we have, I mean, there's a process. It has to, if they're given so many, and I don't know what the number is, so many code violations, at some point, it has to go to the court. So
It's per violation and it goes to the court, but then it's what happens when it gets there, because the concern now is not much. I mean, there's not a whole lot that
and
can
it-
happen.
that's not gonna change because you have a piece of paper with information on it. It's still gonna be the same.
It will give, I mean, I don't know, Mr. Vunich, you tell me, because you were gonna go talk to the court or just sit there and see what happens. I mean, the argument is always the same and giving them better information is seemingly better.
There's a bit of a disconnect right now between code enforcement, the prosecuting attorney, and the municipal judge. And oftentimes, it may be more so between the first two and the latter, because I've been told by the prosecuting attorney, no, that's incorrect, the court administrator, that people will come up to the judge after we've done a thorough investigation and determined a violation and say, well, nobody told me. Well, there's reams of paper in a file about this, but the judge, for the most part, will give them the benefit of the doubt and extend the period to address compliance. So I think having the information does derive a benefit. It derives a benefit of that. If you get asked, well, why aren't they doing something? And we can say we are. We've been to the property X amount of times.
They can't claim ignorance.
It's
If
just,
if it's one visit, they could say, I didn't know, no one told me, okay, maybe give them another chance. But if we've been there 20 times and written them, then they can't come up and just make that claim. The judge will be like, well, they visited you 20 times. You can't say, you can't tell me what you're telling me because it's not true.
So is the information about X number of times we've knocked on their door with the code enforcer, does that not go into the court report before they go to the judge?
it does, but the prosecuting attorney isn't in the courtroom when the judge talks to defendant. So
Why not?
I guess that's the rule of the court. I don't know.
Because I know instances where that has occurred. The prosecuting attorney has
It
been
depends
there.
on the level.
Well,
Yeah, it depends on the level of what they're prosecuting.
when Ms. Prost, the court administrator, and I met, that's how it was explained to me. That's why the judge is sometimes working on best available information, and that may be the testimony of the defendant to him. Whereas we have a file full of photographs and inspection reports that is to the contrary. So all I'm saying is that there is a bit of a disconnect, and I understand the origin of it. Anybody that is in court on a summons relative to code enforcement can ask for a change of venue and go to St. Louis County Associate Circuit Court or Circuit Court. And so there's a balance here trying just to get compliance and not lose the case to that myriad of different things that happened in St. Louis County. So it's just tough. When Mr. Farmer and I were discussing this, it was on a particular instance where something was happening, and it's like, I wasn't able to give him a good answer because I hadn't gotten an answer from code enforcement yet. And it's like, well, there's gotta be a better way. So if you call, Melanie and I can answer your question and they don't have to wait a day or two or more. So
in a lot of this, I mean, you guys have started to see some of these things that we've moved through here before. This is kind of a part one of some other things that are coming down the line in terms of just our general code enforcement process and philosophy and how that works. But making sure that we have a good standard, and a lot of this came from the prosecuting attorney herself that said, hey, this would be helpful to have better data. We were working on this with in public safety for a year when, the police reports we're getting now are way better than the police reports that we got. But even at this point, like Captain Mandel and the guys aren't making this in the building. This goes to like the information department at St. Louis County, and they just sort of give us whatever they think is appropriate, rather than us saying, no, this is specifically the items that we would like to have. And if we don't have these because you can't provide them, that's okay, but then just tell us why we can't have them. Are you not tracking them? Is it, a legal thing that's not appropriate? And there'll be certain times, I think, in some of the new code enforcement stuff where, it very possibly, like some of our other legal things that we have to deal with, like there are certain properties that we all know that, hey, we gotta have a conversation, with an attorney there and whatever. But getting a clear picture of this is what we have going on is the whole goal behind this thing.
Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, I just, as long as collection is not unduly burdensome, more data are always better. It's just, even if you don't use it very often, it's invaluable when you do have to use it. Like my truck has a tachometer and it's an automatic. I don't drive with that. It's not a race car or anything like that, but aircraft's actually a better example. Their cylinder head temperature, exhaust gas temperature, even rudimentary aircraft, you have to keep an eye on those things constantly. It's called your scan. And you only once in a blue moon do you ever have to react to that gauge. But if you don't have that information, you're gonna, spiral into the ground, right?
Right.
So that's an extreme example, but I fully support this because it would be handy for me to have, some of those data.
Excellent.
So
All right,
Excellent.
thank you guys for bringing that to the table, and we'll look forward to seeing that implemented. All right, well, next on the agenda is the review of the 2026 capital improvement projects. These all awards and City Administrator Lee.
Thank you, Chair Galani. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the committee tonight. Also, this is something that also has been discussed by the Administration Public Works Committee, covering the road and bridge component of the actual capital improvement plan for 2026. But there obviously is the trail and park development portion of the budget. That said, we wanted to get this out to the committee and the council in general as soon as possible this year, so we can start getting kind of geared and focused up for our strategic plan, not our strategic plan, but our strategic priorities for 2026. So tonight, what's been provided is kind of an outline of what we're looking to do for 2026, but also kind of looking at where we're at in 25, some of the changes that have been discussed during the year. One being, so I actually go by column, the fiscal year 2025 budget, and then the anticipated column. So these are both 2025, but the anticipated takes into account one critical component. It takes into account that payment that was made to MoDOT midway through the year for the J-turns project and the left turn lanes project. That being said, what was decided upon by the council to help offset those costs were the postponement of 3 different smaller scale projects. One being the Green Pines Park Connector Trail, the construction of it anyways, the trail development resurfacing repairs. So that's just general resurfacing of our trails in multiple different areas. We had some money set aside this year to go after that. And then also the resurfacing of the parking lot and the drive aisle within Anniversary Park. So those 3 items were postponed to 2026. So you'll see in the second column under anticipated that those have been blocked off. The other item that it was just listed for tonight, but is the internet project phase 2. We do not have that currently an agreement in hand. What we do have is our satellite internet rebate program that's been approved by the council. That said, we are still working with Spectrum and a couple other actual internet service providers to see if they could come up with a proposal for us. That said, right now, getting a full project on the board for the price that was listed in our budget is somewhat not gonna happen in 2025, it seems. It seems like we would have something that would come up after the BEAD program in early 2026. So that is something we're taking into consideration, wanted to show that difference, but really what we're trying to focus in on is the 2026 columns here. And we have the current, which is just basically what we had approved under the 5-year capital improvement plan within 2025 when we had that review process. The 2026 anticipated, which is the second column under 2026, which outlines the postponement of those 3 projects, which is parking lot resurfacing, the trail resurfacing, and the pushing back of the connector trail construction. Those have been pushed back here. And then the fiscal year 2026, what we're calling it is version 2, V2, which is what really asking the question. I know this was mentioned during last year's budgeting cycle of what is absolutely critical to have listed in our capital budget. Where should we start from as we need to spend this money to protect critical funding sources? Really meaning, do we have a external grant that is funding a large portion or a decent percentage of the project? And if that is the case, then to market and call that out. So when you take that into consideration, it takes quite a few projects off the board. Tonight, the department is just more so wanting to provide this information, get some generalized feedback on the process this year. But the goal and what came out of the Administration and Public Works Committee was that the department heads and myself would be meeting and going through kind of a priority matrix process for each individual project that's not listed with grant funding tied to it, to categorize it and then also break down which projects should be listed and to come back with a recommendation to both the Administration Public Works Committee and then the Planning Parks Committee as well. Department's available for any questions, but that's really, we wanted to start the process tonight and just get some generalized feedback. Thank you.
Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, I was told by Director Brown 2 weeks ago that we were talking about the traffic on 100. It's been abysmal and so forth, but it's we're happy to see progress. He said that MoDOT has been so efficient and they're working faster than anticipated, and the entire project will be done, including the resurfacing, in 2025, which is absolute music to everyone's ears that sits for a half hour in traffic just on the way home. My question to you is, your spreadsheet seems to show, and there may be some details that I'm missing, but it seems to show that $975,000 of our Highway 100 budgetary funds are in fiscal year 2026. And my question is, are we obligated for those monies in 2025? Are we waiting do we get to wait and save $1 million until 2026?
No, so that's a great question, and it should be listed just in 2025. All payments for the Route 100 J turns and left turn lanes project are specifically dedicated to 2025 alone. That will not carry over to 2026. So when that additional payment was authorized to proceed with the project, because what we were told, at least from MoDOT, was that they were going to shelf the project unless we were able to fork up the additional funding, was back in April. And in this case, that's all spent in fiscal year 25. What could happen in 26 is that there's a final accounting that takes place at the end of the project. And that was the whole discrepancy here, was that the Department of Public Works, but also the Department of Administration, believed that we would most likely receive some additional credits, or they were underestimating the credits that would be associated with our engineering costs that we had. And that's usually calculated at the end, which should have lessened the overall payment that we had to make mid-year. So we may, and I don't want to make a promise here, but when the final tally is done, the anticipation is that we could receive a little bit of money back, but we would not be spending additional money unless the project goes completely overboard. And at this time, that is not anticipated.
Okay, well, this is small, and I was looking at Valley Road resurfacing, $975K, and it was, the next line down was Route 100 J turn. So I was misled, but I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
I have a question, City Administrator Lee, on the Main Street extension to Etherington construction for 1.5 million in 26. We can't do that now that we declined that project. So
Yeah,
we don't have the, right? I mean, it's Crestview's private drive. The north side is totally private. We own up through Village Green on the south side, but with the Latitude project being declined, we don't have the ability to.
It's coming back.
Huh?
Latitude's coming back.
But there's no way that that would ever, even if it came back and it went through the 3-year process of talking about it, we wouldn't even be looking at it. 28, 29. So, I mean, just saying the odds of needing that 1.5 and 26 are 0.
And that's exactly what we're trying to get at here is that, and if you look at the last column for the V2, and that's kind of the golden goose here that we're looking at, what projects absolutely need to get done in 26 and we have funding tied to. One that, you know, is struck out net zero is that 1.5 million that was dedicated towards Main Street. In 2024, when we were planning for the fiscal year 2025 budget, there was an anticipation with that proposal on deck and the fact that we could very well need to move forward, that we put that money aside. That said, we do have engineering going on currently for that project. It's just more so actually going out and construct it. We don't have the easements necessary both on the north side and the south side of the road. So in that case, yeah, that would be that when we go through the priority matrix for each project, and I could share my screen and show that today too, but kind of
As
going
of
through
right now, we know that there's 0% chance that we
Yep.
would need the money
in 2026, 100%, yes.
I mean, I think that fixes our deficit right there, right? Because we're 155 over budget according to this. So you take that 1.5 out, we're 50 grand that we gotta worry about. Versus.
Yes, I'd have to do the exact calculation after removing that, but the understanding would be that would be one of the projects as the department heads come together and we come back with a firm recommendation. That would be one that's not feasible for 2026 alone. And the idea is to focus in on this upcoming year and this year itself. But then obviously we'll start incorporating outward, which is going to be 2027, 28, and 29. But yeah, that is not.
Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yeah, Mr. Lean made a comment about projects and tied to funding or grants and still putting those aside. I think the, what do you call it? The trail by Green Pines, isn't that got a funding but with it? So
Yes.
if that is one of those that have funding and you can't put those aside, then why is that being put aside?
It was a decision made by the council that said it can be completed in 2026. So that was discussed when we had the payments from MoDOT. It can be completed by year end in 2026. So it's not necessarily pushing that off, and it does have federal funds tied to it. 267,000 of the $500,000 anticipated expense would be attributed directly to federal funding.
So there's the federal funding in. And then.
Yeah, that's included in the anticipation.
It's included for
Yeah.
next year.
So the plan, it would be that the project actually is anticipated to go out first thing in the spring of 2026. After our moratorium on trees, on grading permits.
All right. Anybody else? Councilmember Jadwal?
I just real quickly have do we have any update on the Strecker Road sidewalk access to the right of way? You don't have to give me a yes or no answer. We have it. Just have you heard anything back from?
Yes, and we will be having, just as a heads up, we'll be having a discussion with the mayor's permission, of course, at the next council meeting in a closed session discussing that item.
Thank you.
Cool.
Mhm.
Councilmember Kranz?
You want feedback on some of these projects listed is what you're asking for?
That is tonight, yeah, some of the projects specifically focusing really on parks and trail items, but that said, it's gonna go to council altogether, so tonight
Park.
get some feedback.
$100. Home Park is not a park, in my opinion. What's $100,000 for? On Cone Park.
The intent of the funding was to address the edge of right of way that can hold water, as well as to basically better drain the park, so it could be used for something in the future.
A bridge would probably be better. But is that necessary for next year?
When we do the priority matrix, we'll either keep it in at a much lesser charge, or it'll be part of a 5-year plan.
Okay.
That wouldn't be used, no, it's not.
The other park that I have a problem with, Bellevue Park, I tried to find that not too long ago. Find it. Is it being used?
This is this year.
It is currently closed to the public, but we have a volunteer group along with the city through grants. Remove
This is next year.
monsters and basically
These are
restoring
costs associated with
floor to a healthy condition.
But this is, okay, this isn't a park that we own.
We lease it from
This is
St. Louis
version
County.
two of things that they're
We have
saying have
25
to be done
years
because we've got some
additional
grant
25
associated with
years.
But you have it down there for $175,000 for this
See
year.
this column
We
here?
like to basically
This is
open it
the
up to the
grant.
public and
So
that
we
cost
should
us
see
allow us
this,
to pave
like, this
Church
grant
Road, Hunt Street.
has a couple of years to go.
Okay, is that
There's
something you
nothing in
feel is
fiscal
necessary?
year.
We have a committed group of
Nothing in
volunteers
fiscal
that
year
work there
there.
for years. I
These
think
grants,
it's
actually,
actually
I think
take
it has to be
Again,
done
we'll
in
go through
twenty
top
twenty-six.
priority decrease. Presented to the
So this Green Pines.
I just got a couple more. The pickleball court, $500,000. Is that something we can afford next year? I guess.
That's something that's gonna be under intense scrutiny, and the Administration Public Works Committee brought that same item up.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And disc golf course, Glencoe Park, 20 grand. I'm just, are these our priorities? I mean, we got stormwater, we got,
I can maybe help with this. So we had this conversation at
Okay.
PW and because we got the same list.
I'm concerned that we don't have enough money.
Yeah, no, so we got the same list and what we advised Tom and Rick and Joe to go back and do is to, because we have kind of a couple things that have come together and created some issues and conflict. So one of them is a couple years ago, several of us that are still on here helped to kind of come up with like our city priority list, which didn't really function as a city priority list. It was just sort of a list of projects that we all thought were cool. And so that has kind of created a little bit of a level of confusion and bloat with a lot of this stuff. So what we suggested was the kind of V2 budget is like, these are the items that are tied to like specific funding that if we don't spend it,
It's
we
gone.
lose. And so that's not to say necessarily that because we might lose that money, we absolutely need to do those things. That's just to say, let's give us the answer of, hey, if we don't do the Green Pines Trail, theoretically, this is going to cost us $300,000 more should we do this down the road. What we suggested was to have the departments come back with a list of kind of their sort of three-tiered projects. One being like, these are absolutely mission critical things that we just, like, there can be no debate. The next one is like, hey, these are things that would be really great if we could do them. And so then the conversation is, you know, if pickleball happened to fall in that space, do we want $500,000 for pickleball or do we want $500,000 to fix some road from caving in or whatever it is? And then the tier three is like, you know, if we had some magic pot of money that showed up and we could do everything we wanted, that's where these things are gonna fall. And so rather than us going through line item each thing, it was like, hey, why don't you guys come back? This is a great step one, come back with these tiers and then we can have a real conversation to know like, because I don't have, I mean, I have my own thoughts on how some of these things work, but like, you know, one of the things we talked to Rick about is, you know, I struggle with how many rounds of engineering is necessary for something because we wind up talking about it for 6 years and it's like, I thought we already did the engineering. And so getting some clarity on those points and being able to figure out like these things, like not at all to diminish what these guys are doing with the Parks Department, but like there are certain like parks maintenance is certainly more important than getting $100,000 to Cone Park or whatever it is. If we got an extra $100,000 laying around, I'm all for it. But let's look at it with those pieces of information rather than kind of a collection of numbers that we get to talk about what makes us feel good. Like, just give us the facts. These are the things that we can't not do. These are the things that you have a choice on. And these are the things that, you know, you also have a choice on, but there are other options involved. That was what our advisement was. And so they're gonna come back with that next month.
I would suggest the same thing for planning and parks. Let's be consistent across our committees.
Councilor
That was the intent.
Thank you.
Yeah, so following along the park maintenance point, we spent $15K this year for the design for Partner Park. And there's nothing in it, the budget for 2026. And regardless of what we do, it's a city asset. And the pond will fail. We just don't know when. If we don't stabilize the dam and the spillway, there's some problems out there. And we need to include money for that maintenance issue because otherwise it will cost us a fortune to reconstruct the park if we ever get around to doing that. So,
Is there any-
otherwise, I guess.
And yeah, and if you don't mind, with your permission, Chair.
Yeah.
On that note, we had in 2027, I believe I had to reference the full 5 year to build the entirety of Portner Park. So that's being said, you're only seeing that slice of 2026. But we could most definitely, that would be something would be considered if we still plan to do the park, though, that would be also need to be considered. So-
Yeah, well, regardless of what happens to the land short term, the pond is a feature. It's Wildwood's only water feature, and it needs to get some maintenance. Not glamorous, but it's mandatory.
We could we'll include that in the upcoming report.
Issue in Ward 7 is Old State Road. Because it's dangerous, the county has no money. What would make residents happy, and it also affects Ward 8. You have a lot of young kids going to school, traveling down there. We know it's dangerous, and the county will tell you it's dangerous. But we gotta have more fatalities, then they would chip in some money, which is horrible because we did these J turns too late and we had a fatality, you know? So waiting for fatalities is not a good criteria to use. I'm just wondering if we could set some money aside. I don't know how much, but for the future, and kind of work it up, like have a little account for it. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money, maybe a couple $100,000 or something. And we can get the county on board eventually, because they said they want to do something there. You can also get Ellisville owns part of that too, so you could have 3 partners to do something. But it is a safety issue, and I think safety's very important, more than parks. You know, we got a lot of parks. And so I would recommend some kind of a number there that's reasonable to get it started, and then work on a goal of a roundabout at that school.
Are you talking about the roundabout at Oak Ridge?
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, right there. It's just something that I need to bring up.
Yeah, I live off Ridge, so
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
fully aware if I have to make a right
Okay.
turn sometimes to make a left turn, but.
but we could fund that.
Yeah.
And maybe in 3 or 4 years, you have some money there to cut a deal. Maybe the county will come up with more money, but I've talked to them before and they said they know it's bad. And it's just not enough accidents, which is not the way to look at it. I mean, we have
No,
obligations.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the county's not gonna stop looking at it the way they look at it, and if.
But they
I'd
did.
love to see a roundabout there
Yeah.
probably more than anybody else, cause I live right there, but at the end of the day too, I think.
But you just can't drop it because of the safety issue. I mean,
I mean, we had already worked with Ellisville and each committed $250,000.
well, the county helped us out earlier on that surface
Well,
treatment.
I mean, we spent $400,000 on it.
But they did. Well, it's up to the county. Or the council, I'm just advocating it because that's what my constituents are concerned about.
No, mine too, and like I said, I'm included
So
in
if
that.
you wanna say, hey, we don't care as a city about safety, that's not good either. So,
No, I don't disagree. I just think when you're talking about the budget for 26, we gotta talk about.
I'm
what we
not
spend
saying
in 26.
all I'm asking is just put something aside for it, that's all. And it will keep a dialogue going.
Yeah.
Things can change, you know, we know that.
I think, I'll just say this, cause this is something, we talked about this even before Councilmember Bros used to bring this up. And we've got our $18 million reserve, right, which I think everyone agrees is more than what we need for a city of our size and with the budget that we have. So to what you're saying, I mean, it's one of these things where we can continue. I know we've applied for grants. We had Ellisville on board to kick in 250. We were gonna kick in 250. We were applying for a grant for like 1.5 or something. And we kept getting declined on those grants because of the safety situation or the lack of where it's.
Stormwater
Right, but what I'm saying is we can continue to apply for those grants, right? And if we get approved for those grants, then whatever that amount that we have to kick in, if it's not in the budget and we have to do it within that time, then that's something that I think, you know, when we come to issues like that, stormwater and other things, we can make allocations to talk about saying if we've got 18 million in the budget, in the reserve,
Our reserve,
we only need 9, or I'm just making up random numbers.
No, yeah,
Then
I
other
agree with
things
you.
We spend that.
we have way too much money in our reserves. We got $18 million.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, but that money needs to be used.
So that was also part of the conversation.
Yeah.
What we were talking about along with this and the watershed and things like that is, you know, Mr. Vunich and I and Mr. Lee have had a long conversation. We had a very long conversation at Edmond and PW that more than likely, whether we expended the reserve and we did all these other things, we were talking about the 250,000 that got vetoed by the governor on the watershed stuff. More than likely, no matter what we do, we're gonna have to have a parks and stormwater tax that at least gets asked of the residents, and whether they
Yeah.
accept it or not is up to them. But we need to do our best effort to kind of make the case for that. That being said, you know, while I was frustrated, and I said this at my Edmond PW meeting, while I was frustrated that the governor vetoed our $250,000 for our watershed issue, it's insane to me that we were asking the state for $250,000 because we don't have any money to do this, but we're gonna spend $500,000 on a pickleball court that
Yeah.
nobody seems to care about. So what that kind of drove was this conversation where what we need to do is get our budget prioritized correctly. We need to look at what we have in the reserves and go, hey, because a number of us all voted a bunch of years ago now to say we're gonna spend $3 million on the internet and $3 million on the watershed, and then overnight it was $7 million from the federal government on the watershed, and I don't know what you're talking about with the rest of that conversation. And so what we need to do as a city, in my opinion, and that's what we're kind of working toward doing on this, is these items, whether that be, you know, this Ridge Road situation that requires a county match. Applying for the grants is great. We've had that now with the roundabout at 109 and BA, which I think is like an insanely dangerous intersection, and I think a roundabout is probably the best solution. But we voted to spend $300,000 to do it. It's now gonna cost us, what, Tom, $1.4 million?
Yeah, it's 1.4 and some change.
You know, 3 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever it was. And so we have to be careful. We've spent an enormous amount of money on a lot of these kind of like co-funding projects where we are spending way more than any other municipality. And we just need to go, hey, you know, at Ridge Road, if it's $200,000 from us or $250 and $250 from Ellisville and the county needs to match that and whatever, that's fine. We are ready to act. And I would say that's kind of one of those things in a budget where we can say, if the county decides they have money to do this, we have $250,000 that is ready tomorrow to go do this thing.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to lock this up in a long-term capital improvement situation, I don't think, because that almost handcuffs us more than anything. I mean, I'm like you, Katie, I'm all for getting a sidewalk in on Strecker Road, and perhaps we'll get a different understanding on that, but I'm not holding my breath. And for I don't know how many years, we've had $250,000 sitting on the budget for something that is not ever going to get built.
But they can be put in a 5-year program, can it?
Yeah, but
It's been in a
it's been on
five-year
a 5-year
program for,
It's been there for 5 years.
I'm just
15
talking about,
years.
hey, we can do a 5-year program on it as a suggestion. That's-
We could, but the idea would be,
If you don't wanna do it.
if we're gonna go to our residents at some point, whether it's for parks and stormwater or anything else, and say, hey, we think we need to ask you for half a cent of something, then we certainly can't have $18 million sitting in the bank. We can't have $500,000 going to something that is not a necessity. That's not to say, well, we shouldn't do it if we can do those things. But we need to get our spending priorities figured out before we go to the residents and ask them for any more. That's not to say I don't think we need it, because we do, but we just need to do some reconfiguration on this. And our capital improvement budget, as we talked about last year, is like, it's insane. And what is it, Tom? In 2 years, it is like some enormous amount of money that is, I think, more than we have in the budget, period. So we need to fix this stuff. And one of the things the mayor and I and Tom are working on is, you know, we're gonna have a conversation now with our new council people about reconfiguring what that priority list actually means, not a list of projects, but like a philosophy thing. And then helping our department heads, or hoping our department heads come back with our kind of very simple tiered system that can be changed, that says, these are things that can't move, these are things that can. And I mean, last year we asked, basically just take everything off the capital improvement budget and start at nothing. And we're kind of working, not exactly at that level, but we're working towards that to be able to say, hey, these are the things that are important, and this is what we gotta have.
Could
Yeah,
you Could you also have Mr. Galani participate in that discussion?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that on
Chair.
the next item, I think.
Okay,
Awesome. Well, then great segue.
Yeah.
We'll just go into the
let's
next.
go into the
item.
next one.
Communication protocol for substantive changes to committee motions. Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Chair. And this is another, sorry guys for all these admin crossovers, but we wanted to make sure everyone was kept informed. In this case, for the last admin PW committee meeting, we did have a discussion about having specific callouts to substantive changes to motions made within planning and parks and administration public works, economic development, any committee really that's going to council. So specific document that's referenced out of committee to council, say there is, and there mostly is in these cases, we'll have a motion to prepare legislation for introduction to council, or a motion to put a report together that includes legislation or an agreement. But once we go to our city attorney, or if we do legal research and we find out, okay, the city can't legally require X, Y, or Z, what this motion and policy would really implement would be that when it goes to council, that substantive change, say the policy requirement or a different vendor, that's never going to happen. But if it's something that's drastically different than what is discussed at the committee meeting, that would be called out in red ink and shown and also discussed verbally and brought up kind of as a point item of, hey, there X, Y, and Z change was made from this meeting to this meeting, and it's being presented to you tonight. So tonight, it's just really more so formalizing that policy and carrying it over, providing you input, providing you a chance to have input before it would go to council.
Anybody have questions? I think it's great.
That's a great idea.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Awesome.
The next item is communication standards for city
Did you take a motion?
project
Yeah,
and
we've-
development adjacent activities. Mr. Lee.
Hey, it's up to you. So at MNPW with the substantive change thing, we made that a motion to go through.
Okay.
If you guys wanna, I'm happy to explain. I think all of you are aware why we're doing it, but I'm happy to explain why I wrote it the way that I did. If anybody has any questions on it.
Yeah, you making a motion?
Complete faith in you. I'm gonna make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion, a second, any discussion?
Mhm.
Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? All right, perfect. All right, City Administrator Lee.
Sorry, 1 second here. Had to switch back for a second. Okay, so going back to so just to recap, we are now talking about the communication standards for city projects and development adjacent activities. This is also another item that was discussed at Administration Public Works, and we're wanting to make sure that the Planning and Parks Committee is read in and has a chance to provide input on when the city, engages and activates its communication. We'll be working to put together, and tonight the Department of Planning and Administration has put together a overview of what types of activities are going to be communicated, not only to the public. One main consideration is, we see that Ameren's doing some work. Maybe they didn't report that. They're just doing some general maintenance. If we see it, we would report it up the chain to our communications professional. We'd get that information out on the website and social media. We typically do that. But the idea would be to keep an eye on it, but also asking our council members for consideration too, if they see some work occurring and it doesn't seem like it's been communicated, to let us know so we can get the messaging out there and get to the bottom of it. And unless they get a permit, in some cases they don't, they'll just do the work. It is somewhat tedious because then we're answering calls when really that call should be going to the relevant utility company. So that's one part of it, is communicating with residents through our spotlights on our social media, on our website, also on our social media through Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube page. But this is really what we do on our YouTube. And then also having it included in our e-newsletter. Typically, if it happens on a Friday, that's when it's most concurrent. The other component, though, is really making a call out and what rises to the level to be included in an official report to the council. So is, a water main break. Do we have a direct communication to the council saying this water main broke? Here's the timeline for anticipated completion of their repairs. Sometimes we don't have the information, but it's more so just putting a policy together that would easily and clearly identify when that needs to be communicated to the council. The last component is kind of covering two other different projects. One would be timelines that we are aware of as a city of developments that are occurring out. This could include the reserve, could we include the point at Brightleaf, could include all kinds of different projects, even a home that's, doing a very large driveway. If it seems to really impact, day to day, and we think a resident may give a call for it, then we would want to communicate that out, just like we do in our development trends document that's included on tonight's report. The next item would also be including any large, if we find out that, and we already do this, but if a new business is moving in, we get a business license application, a sign application for a new business, we're going to communicate that both the Economic Development Committee, also to the full city council. But also, if there's just a purchase of land, if there's something that a large plot of land has been purchased by an entity that, maybe is unknown, if it has been owned by another organization for a long time and it's transferring ownership, we're wanting to call that out and then communicate that to the council as well. And then also we're providing that information to the public, explaining, hey, this plot of land has been purchased, but it's currently zoned like this, obviously in accordance with zoning law, but in under consult from Director of Planning and also our city attorney, but communicating to our residents and to the council, here is what the possibility is for that property now that it's on the market. Really, the hope is to quell fears from residents that, hey, this property is going to go, become apartment buildings tomorrow. That is most likely not the case. And really just kind of get ahead of some of these items. But really a big concern we have with staff, or for our staff, is that sometimes these things aren't communicated to us. If it's a permit, if we get something in, then we'll include it in our recent trends. But the one thing we'll have to just keep an eye on is if the council does notice some work that's being completed that doesn't look right, or it just doesn't seem like it was communicated from us, please let us know. We want to make sure we're on top of it and they have the proper documents necessary to actually carry out the work. The department's available for any questions though.
And are you looking for action on this, or this doesn't?
The idea would be to bring either an endorsement of the policy, add additions to the policy that's included tonight. But overall, if we're okay with it, then it would be to bring the policy forward to council.
Councilmember Dodwell?
I'll make a motion to bring it forward to council and that we approve it at the next council meeting. We can always make adjustments. It's a
Yeah,
living
second.
document.
Councilmember Vosky, okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing, Councilmember Farmer?
I wrote this one too, so, the idea is, and we had this situation just like last week on Clayton Road where the county was putting asphalt coverages on sidewalks, which is not something that is normal.
Yeah.
So we, Tom reached out, I piggybacked on it, so we've started an entirely different kind of conversation than we've had with the county based on this, but the idea is, we do have a lot of utility partners that do an exceptionally terrible job of telling us what is going on. And so having this kind of one of those data points of like having the ability to go, hey, every time American Water does a great job, I'm not picking on them, but like every time the water company comes out to do something, we don't ever have any idea what's going on and they're ripping up a road or whatever it is. So when it's within the city's purview, we want to do a better job of saying like, the example Tom was talking about, I gave, which was the LaSalle property that's for sale, like it's for sale. We as a city can't do anything about that. What we can say is, should somebody buy it, the only thing they can put there, I think, is like 30 houses or whatever it's zoned for. And if they want to put something else there, it has to come to city council. If they don't, they can do whatever they want. It's their property, but we're not gonna put an apartment building there. We're not advocating they put a Walmart or whatever people freak out about is gonna be there. It's just like, this is the information that we have. This is what's going on. And it's just clearly communicating to the best of our ability to the residents and to us, like, this is what's happening. So from a public works standpoint, which is not something you guys see every day, but like if we're gonna go out and resurface a subdivision in your neighborhood, as I've said to Rick, like, we know that much earlier than the day they show up to do it. So maybe like, just put a little post up somewhere saying, hey, in the next 2 weeks, we're doing, Timber Ridge Estates or whatever it is. So then that HOA and those residents can understand, oh, this is gonna be inconvenient for 2 weeks. And if it's gonna be more than 2 weeks, then we go, hey, based on the weather, we had to do this outside with Taylor Road. It was supposed to be one thing, and we had all these storms, now it's something else. Nobody's fault, we're just letting everybody know what's up. That's the whole idea.
Perfect. Cool. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Did we get a second on that,
Very
Chair? Just wanted to confirm that we got a second on that. I know Ms. Dodwell had given the first. Oh, okay, thank you.
Bring us to the last item on the agenda under planning matters, which is the recent development trends. Does anybody have any questions? Director Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to advise, the first item under projects is Westland Acres discussion. The Development and Zoning Review Committee held a meeting on June 23rd with the developer family members that reside or have resided in Westland Acres. They had asked for expedited reviews. We've yet to receive the zoning application, fee, and the preliminary development plan. So if there is some conversation out in the community about us delaying it, we actually reached out to the developer a week or so ago, advising them if they wanted to be at a public hearing in August, we needed this information by the 17th. We didn't receive it. So the earliest it'll be at Planning and Zoning Commission, even under the best of conditions, would be September. So the Bergen Temple is very close to being ready to release their site development plan improvement plans. It's been about a 3.5-year process to get to this point. I met with the homeowners association today to go over the plans. They're disappointed that it's not as clear cut as they would like, meaning the temple's going to build in phases. And they wanted definitive timelines associated with the phases. They can't provide that. It's all based upon fundraising, as far as I know. So just a couple of projects that are kind of out there that have drawn attention. But if you have any other questions, Melanie and I would be glad to try to answer them regarding the other items.
Okay.
Oh, one last thing, our $50 fee is getting us near $19,000 a year, so.
$50 fee.
Budgetary problems?
I got to the cabin.
Thank you, I will. We heard that, Mr. Plant, already applied to the cabin.
All right, does
Joe,
anybody have any?
$50 fee,
Pardon?
a $50 fee.
So as part of our program budget committee, which you were a member of, we went through all the fees that we provide.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, zoning authorizations for free. And so we said, at least we should charge something. Probably should have been $100, but given that it was 4 years of not charging, we started at 50. So each time we authorize a project, you get a $50 fee up to $18,200 or so. This is for June. We're having a busy July. So we are bringing in some revenue finally for zoning authorization.
When we look at raising that, because 100 seems like that's very recent. So it's very
It's well over 100. The typical zoning authorization starts in the Department of Planning. It goes to the Department of Public Works for engineering review. It goes to our arborist now, and then it comes back to planning. And then there's multiple calls to other agencies, the fire district.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's like $2 an hour for city staff time.
And some would say that's too much for what they're getting from us. So, but we wanted to tier it. So
You got a plan to look at it.
Yep.
And it's probably in Joe's committee because he does.
it's not, it's in his computer
It is
eventually.
now.
I think he was talking about an $18,000 Christmas party.
Was.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I do have one more question. So I know the HOA list is not always up to date. What can we do about that?
We talked about that too.
You did,
So-
but
Yeah. So we've had, with your permission, Chair. So we've had a couple different endeavors to reach out to the HOAs proactively. We have the form online, obviously, that they can go to if they go to Residence HOA. They can update it at any time, but we've actually done a couple substantial efforts and does result in a couple different updates. One other thing we do is we try to reach out to the HOA and have them create one dedicated email. The best advice we can give is, especially since if they're not using a professional organization to oversee it, they're a group of trustees. If they had a shared Gmail account that can be passed on to the president each time, where it's not directly connected to the individual's personal accounts, then that can become a living way to contact that HOA. So we do give that advisement. The other item though is when we do those far-fetched reach outs through social, through our e-newsletter, through all of our different communication mechanisms, it doesn't necessarily result in a large return. So you're putting in a lot of effort, a lot of staff time in order to get, 3 or 4. Last time we did a run on it, it was late 2024 and we saw about 6 different HOAs that updated it, which is great. But, that's probably a good, 2-3 hours of work to put together all the graphics and things along those lines. So I would almost say we'd almost just want to communicate the same graphic we have and just keep pressing that button on the e-newsletter and social media. And then obviously when residents come by, that's something too. If we're meeting with an HOA, we want to get their information. That's typically when it's updated on our end.
Yeah, I know. I talked to one lady who said she was president of HOA and I went back to her for something. Oh, no, she's not. And it's this person. You go to this person. Oh, no, it's that person. So just trying to, chase them down for something.
We talked about trying to reinstitute, the city used to do like a pretty limited, like semi-regular meeting of HOAs for like tips and things. So when it comes to like watershed and mowing practices and whatever, we've talked about trying to reinstitute that. And that's coming on the other side of it. So it'll get to you guys here shortly, but the idea would be to do what Tom's talking about in terms of the digital footprint, but also try to get like, some physical bodies in the building to talk about what's going on. So then we can actually have those kinds of real conversations with people and update it that way. Because, as the trustee, like, you're not paying attention to a lot of that stuff.
Director.
Just as a point of information or history, when the council and planning and zoning commission met twice a month, the first month of the new year that had a 5th Monday, we would hold a trustee meeting and we would fill up the chambers.
So you can just do that
Well,
again.
maybe we should do that
Yeah,
again.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the one where we had the training along with it,
Mhm.
I know more people that came to that than probably would not have if it hadn't been for the training.
There's several attorneys that'll be glad to come and basically kind of talk about, here's some free advice, so to speak.
Yeah, and we've talked with our city attorney. We could have that scheduled. It would cost some money, but it wouldn't be anything it wouldn't be anything too crazy. It would just be the time for the actual presentation.
So is our Christmas.
Councilmember Blisky.
I was just gonna say, I've attended the ones that St. Louis County does, that Mark Carter does, and has speakers, and they're pretty well attended by folks from the HOAs, and I think it would be a great addition if the city did it.
As I said, we used to fill the chambers.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you for the updates on the development trends. Good discussion. Takes us to our next item, which is executive session, which we don't have. And not ready for action items.
I got a quick question
Yeah,
on that,
go ahead.
if you don't mind.
Sure.
As we're going through the budgetary process, there are some things that are going to impact or would need a budgetary assignment to them. There's also some things that need some planning, et cetera, around them. So could we as a committee perhaps set aside a couple of council members to work on this stuff or a couple of council members to work on that stuff so that we can knock out some of these things? And I'm not saying which ones tonight,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to think
Joe.
about, we keep adding things to this
Oh,
list.
he does everything anyway.
We keep adding things to this list and we just keep kicking them down the road and I'd rather we get them done. So rather than what we did 2 years ago, which was we took everything off the list and said, we're not gonna do them because we haven't done them in 2 years. And so now several of them are back here again and
The permission of the chair, I can give you updates at the August meeting on all of these.
okay.
How long they've been on the agenda, so to speak, why there's been a delay or why they've returned, as you just
Okay.
described, Mr. Stadwell. Several of them actually probably will be on the agenda for action. Speaking of the memorandum
Right.
of understanding, those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Right.
Councilmember Rambo.
Just
Oh,
think
Katie's not done.
I just think many of us at this table would be more than happy to sit down and kind of knock through some of this stuff a little bit to get it done.
Sure, go ahead.
And this is not something necessarily I feel great about, but landscaping and the plantings.
I was
guy,
just gonna ask.
Yeah. Mhm.
That was my question.
He has pulled together a draft. It's pretty much in, I think, almost presentable form. Maybe you can describe it.
That, I feel like it's in a presentable form to the landscape and planning committee, to just kind of run through it, but there were like stopping points and areas in which I thought would need to be discussed by the committee to decide where to go from that, but it's looking pretty good, I think, and we got the tree code into it.
We need to have a subcommittee meeting
Yeah.
for that so that we can finish that up.
She's being modest. It's in a booklet format. It's got great graphics. It's got very appealing words to it. We haven't had time with everything else to kind of talk through it as a group in the planning department and with Mike Walsh and our arborist. But yes, I think the subcommittee deserves to see it. I think it's come a long way since we kind of uncoupled with the consultant game and brought it in-house. Good job.
You could share that and the website.
So
too.
we have pages set up on the back end of the website that are not visible to the outside. And I didn't want to go through and start connecting pages to it until it was at a final point, because then we'd have to go through and undo it and redo it. And
Okay.
so, but I think that that's also ready to move forward as soon as the rest of it is.
The key component is anything in the manual you can get on the website. It's easier to work from the website than the manual times.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. But it'll all take you into like, the same PDF or possibly break it down into separate PDFs, just depending on how easy it is to maneuver through it.
Yeah,
But then you could maneuver through it on the back end or on the front end with the website, but it'll get you to where you need to go.
we've talked about a lot of different possibilities.
Mhm.
Curious as to where we were at with it.
Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, that's awesome news that it's made significant progress. I would suggest a sort of a working meeting where you don't have everything completely polished, because there's a lot to be said. It's been a long time since we met, and there have been some developments, even some legislative developments and so forth. And I would strongly suggest that Ms. Clark be a participant, even though she's no longer a council member.
Absolutely.
So I'm volunteering more work for her, but she's
And a resident.
The subcommittee had already authorized Ms. Clark to kind of stay
Yeah.
on as a.
Oh, okay, I
We
forgot
had-
that.
We had.
Okay, I forgot that.
And I would, with the permission of two of the subcommittee members,
Sure.
I would like to obviously loop in Mike Walsh to be part of that.
Absolutely. I meant to say
For
that.
sure.
too. Stealing my thunder.
Have to do that.
Sorry, yeah. No, that's great.
Cool. Very
Awesome.
good. Anybody else? Miscellaneous?
You're late.
One item, which was something you had on the council meeting the last time, which was, coordinating the chairs and what's going on kind of a thing. So, the last several months I've been working on basically at the end of every admin and PW meeting, I have AI help me make a recap for what's going on. And we are using a motion tracker, so we know like, hey, this thing is going this place, or this thing comes back in 60 days, or whatever it is. And so I was thinking that it would make sense, at least in the near term here, I can help show you how to do it. It's not very hard, but you and me and Scott, who's out of town with EDC and some of these other things, to try to create a thing where sort of like Tom's message that goes out, like here's the CA report, like here's the stuff that's moving through and what's going
Yeah.
on and how it affects you guys or vice versa. Because I think, well, it makes sense that half of us are on one committee and half of us are on the other committee. And, some of us talk more than others talk or whatever. Like there are certain things that, some people don't realize are important to somebody else or whatever. So getting this information out there to be like, this is what's moving and here's why it helps, especially selfishly, I guess, for myself, because we're putting things together now where it's like 2 and 3 part systems that need to go like, they need to go this way or it doesn't work. And so getting that information out in a more concise way,
Yeah.
while getting around the idea of like, we can't just email everybody because then we have quorum issues and that kind of stuff. So we have to
no,
figure
I'd be
that
happy
part.
to-
That was my thought.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just let me know.
Cool.
Connect on it. Cool. Anybody else? All right, well, we do have the next meeting, which is Monday, August 18th, 2025. The department's requesting a new date.
Well,
Oh.
we have that situation again where it's the third Tuesday is this, after the second Monday is that fall. And so we're wondering if we could beg upon your kindness one more time. I think this is the last time in 2025.
So what's the date?
Monday, August 18th.
Move it from the 12th to the 18th. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, everybody good with that?
The
Thanks so
18th.
much.
Yeah.
Monday, the 18th.
It is very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody good on it?
Yep.
Do you need a motion to formally change it, or
If you'd like, that'd be fine.
can we get a motion? Councilmember Rambo, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. This is a motion to change the Planning and Parks Committee meeting for August from Tuesday the 12th to Monday the 18th. All in favor, any discussion on the motion?
Wait a minute, oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's 6 days. Fine, sorry.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right. Well, thanks, guys, for the great discussion as always, good participation and seeing a lot of good things being done and things getting handled. Great to see all aspects of the city working together. So as always, thank you. Have a great rest of the week. Stay cool. It actually wasn't that hot in here.
No.
Sun
it's
went
not
down.
bad.
Tomorrow, Wednesday, are gonna be real.
So the new asphalt here at Town Center is gonna be fun to walk on. So take a nice walk.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Rambo, Rand second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.